Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer. Just wanted to bring you some updated information about the one-day event, one of in a string in a series that I've been doing with some local guys called the Gamer Grunts at various local shops in the tri-state area, centering around New Jersey and New York, and moving further out from there. This is the table set up at a local place called the Brooklyn Strategist, which is in Brooklyn, New York. And this is a great place. This is looks like a converted Starbucks. It's a big shop. It's very clean. It's very cool. They got great terrain. They've got great tables, lots of these awesome mats, and just an awesome setup. There's tons of kids as well as adults. They have an after-school program, which is awesome. The whole idea that they're teaching kids to play D&D. They're teaching kids to play these tabletop war games, and there's plenty of room for adults to play all kinds of games, from fantasy games to historical games. And I've done some demos there. I haven't done some demos. Excuse me. I'm going to be doing some demos there. And I'm looking to run some more events at this place. This is a great place. This is awesome. So this is just before the event was to start. We were setting up some tables for one of the initial events. There's my son Ethan in the back helping set up some terrain. Ethan also competed in the events today, and he did very well. Here's one of the table setups where and this is one of the game. I think this is game 2, maybe even game 3 scenario that we did early initially, and this is where you had portals on either side of the table where you went the long way, and there's a barrier that prevents you from shooting across the middle of the table. The only way to get to the other side of the table is through the barriers, and you wind up randomly at one of the barriers on the opposite side. You can't get back unless you're a flyer, in which case you can fly over this huge barrier. I think this is supposed to take place on the Plane of Insanity. This is one of the events, scenarios that one of the other Gamer Grunt guys had set up, and it's a fun one. It's a little tough, but it requires some real thought, some real planning, because you could strand one of your units across on the other side. And one of the things that I had added in as an added dimension element is that you could destroy the realm gates, which really helps in this particular scenario, and I found that people took advantage of that today, because if you destroy one of the realm gates, it actually reduces the options that people can randomly show up at. And you could start, if you destroy 2 of the realm gates on my son's game, he actually destroyed 2 of the realm gates on his side, which really limited where the opponent was able to show up. So he capitalized on that too, which was pretty awesome, and which is very smart on his part. And but getting the other side is essential, because you gain more victory points from going through the realm gates, as well as destroying the realm gates, than just by destroying your opponent. Your opponent's kind of in the way of achieving these goals. So it was pretty interesting, and it really, is a way to think a little bit outside the box and try to plan and play in a little bit of a different dimension, and work off of a scenario that that would not cater to every list, and might even actually really neuter some lists that were really skewed, like a heavy cannon list or whatnot. It really, the whole idea behind a lot of these games, which I want to take to another level, myself, but I'm one amongst the committee of people that are trying to build out these game scenarios that really are trying to have people, with enough freedom to bring what they want, but with enough rewards and hurdles for, skewed lists won't do well in every game. They may do well in one game, but they're not going to do well. This is a really good flyers game. Not a good shooters game, especially if you have cannons and war machines and stuff. And it showed, and it was definitely fun and very interesting. This was the main table. I love these game mats. I have a bunch of them myself. This store has a nice supply of them. This marble one, which we've seen on the Andy Remy show and showcased in a couple other channels. I love this one. I mean, it looks like it's almost a little too neat. Like it's this marble floor and this ornate, ceremony hall. It would be great for a dwarven stronghold setting. it's not your traditional type of game mat, in my opinion, and it's very, very specific in the theme. But I love the look, and it's just such a good quality mat with a good image. I might consider to pick it up, just even though it's not as generic as a swamp mat or a forest mat or desert plains or something. This might be very, you might break this one out as often, but when you break it out, it's gonna look amazing. I love this mat. I wanted to also mention Martin Orlando, who came in second overall in terms of victory points for all the scenarios, but he came in first without a doubt. Even if we had even a larger showing, I don't know if anybody would have really competed with the level of craftsmanship and paint prowess that he displayed with not only his display board, which is what he brought to Holy Wars, I think, if I'm correct, but also just the incredible paint job he had on his models. And these were almost all converted. There's only a handful of maybe some Stormcast that he brought with, which were all greatly, excellent paint jobs. But he did a whole lot of work, from the Fey Enchantress to the Grail Knights. Everything is a conversion mash, which I love. I'm doing it myself with a number of things with my undead. I don't like just everything just outside the box. I think he had some demogryphs there. Maybe those were regular kits, but still, excellent job, Martin. I just think that again, look at the castle. Just look at the castle first of all. I remember watching a video with one of the legends of the YouTubers, a Once Bitten, who was building for forever, his old castle from GW, Citadel Castle. And he's trying to, put together, and I think that was a Once Bitten, if I remember correctly, but, he's just working on one of the walls and, some of the battlements, one of the towers, just trying to get each one of these bricks to be each a perfect little snowflake. And he just was lamenting about how long it took, but it was rewarding because it came out so well. And it baffles my mind just how much work would go into doing such a job. And this is the kind of job that Martin is showing here. He's an excellent painter. I'm very impressed, and he deserved his win in such a big way. And so he got a nice, some gift certificate, a store credit from both showing second place. And there's some of the Stormcast. You can see that there, as well as just an incredible display of the hobby side of the game. So I wanted to show you just a few of the battle reports. I mean, I'm not going to do a regular battle report, but I'm just going to show you some of the games, mostly from my son's perspective, from the games that he played. He played with a pretty sizable ogre list. This is his army. This is the army that he picked. I did contribute a little bit to the picking of it, but he did some job, picking just not only an incredible army in terms of its capability within the Age of Sigmar arena, but also good units within them, things that he liked, and I certainly helped him promote it. But this was his setup. He went up against this army, Orlando's army. This was in game one, and he started moving through the portals right away. I had play tested this game with him a couple times, so Ethan had a little bit of a leg up. He was able to actually understand the scenario, some of the strengths and weaknesses. I mean, he's 9, he'll be 10 soon, but he's picking up on this stuff pretty quickly. I'm very impressed. So we got one of his giants through right away, and the key to this particular mission is don't send necessarily everybody through immediately in one turn. You might send one unit through. You're only going to get maximum victory points from sending a unit or whatever it is once each turn. So you have to really kind of gauge whether or not in this scenario you want to flood your enemy's starting area with and miss out on victory points with enough to support an invading force versus camping your own portals to kind of stymie your opponent and kill him as he comes in, and have enough forces to cover all these portals, probably trying to destroy some of them to remove the randomness or reduce the randomness and get a better gauge on where they might show up, because there's only so many of these that you can cover, especially if you're sending forces across to the other side. So it really forces you to think and prepare and adapt, and it's just an interesting scenario. It's the kind of scenario that takes a little longer than some of the other ones to actually play. But it's really worth it because you really see people's, the gears working in people's heads. So I like it. I would change it a little bit. I've already made some adjustments, like, my suggestion to allow the realm gates to be to be destroyable, and which they are, and that's a great element. Also, too, one of the things I threw in there was that you make it random, so that when you show up, you just roll randomly to see which portal you show up. That changes a lot of things, because the initial iteration was that you would show up at a particular one that was your kind of mirror on the other side. So this one you need a little bit more time, I think, to play this one, but it's really worth it. It forces you to really change up your tactics, and it doesn't really help having a skewed list. You really have to have a diverse list with a lot of different type of unit types across it. So, Ethan was really smart with this. He put up his, he took a Beast Claw Avalanche. He had a Stonehorn, a Thunder Tusk, 2 units of Mournfang. So he covers one of the gates with one of his Mournfang and kind of sits in the middle with the others, which is pretty interesting because he could try to charge one to go across the other side or charge people that came through. And he whittles away and does a little bit of damage. This is actually just a picture of one of the other games that were taking place, which is a mix of Order against, I guess, Khorne Chaos. So I might have these interspliced a little bit in there. This is when they went ahead and set up. Okay, so get back to Ethan. He goes and he charges with the Stonehorn and just wipes out. He fails with the Thunder Tusk to charge. I think he actually might have failed with one of the Mournfang to get this, but. He just this Thunder Tusk alone, Stormhorn alone killed the portal, and the portals are pretty beefy. They get 20 wounds each and a 4-up armor save, so which can be affected by rend, no problem. So any rends are going to adjust that. It's a lot of wounds, but between shooting and hand to hand, you have to devote quite a bit of resources to try and bring them down. It just goes to show that with some of the shooting attacks that he had, which weren't tremendous, but. That Stonehorn, man, it is some model. He had asked to get another Stonehorn, another Thunder Tusk. He just doesn't need them because he won't play games that big. But just having one of these guys on the table is just scary. And you'll see that when you see some of the details about turn 2. So in the opposing members, which is, by the way, was Martin, he had brought in 3 of his Demigryphs. And randomly they came up where there was this was the only realm gate that Ethan really wasn't able to cover in the turn. And he brought in a Hydra on this turn. It pushed back, as per the rules for the scenario, the bulls that were covering this particular scenario. But this Hydra is outnumbered in a big way. There's a lot of bulls. I think it's a whole lot of bull there. 5 of them, I think, and a giant on the way. And then there's, you can see at the top of the screen, his Bruiser, and there's a Battle Standard Bearer, Bruiser, Battle Standard Bearer, and a Butcher. So there's plenty of reinforcements sitting right there too. The giant that came in had a nice little fight with these Grail Knights, which are kind of a mash between I think the Bretonnians and Empire Knights as well. Really nice looking kit, nice looking conversion and paint job. And this was nice. The Giants just killed 2 or 3 of these Grail Knights. Yeah, and then gets obliterated by them. But the beautiful thing of this is that when he died, Ethan won the roll off to see where he fell, and Ethan, of course, puts it. He says he wants to get as many units as possible. There's a unit of, I think, prosecutors in the back there. You might just be able to see them. I don't know if they're prosecutors. They're the guys with 2-handed swords for the Stormcast. Wow, they're tough, those guys. But this guy, he falls on. And you do die 3 mortal wounds with it on each unit he falls on. So that was epic because he managed to kill a couple of these Grail Knights, and then he puts a few more wounds. And these are souped up Grail Knights because the Fey Enchantress is here too. And Grail Knights are very easily get crazy. They're like 2-ups to hit, 2-ups to wound, rerolls this. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff that are stacked on these guys. And this giant, even though he's giant, still was able to munch a bunch of them. I think this was a great trade-off on Ethan's part. So he put through another giant on the other realm gate, and I'm not going exactly in turn order. This is not a complete bat rep, but just to give you an idea. And there's a bunch of Stormcast on this side, so we'll see how that turns out. But then, Ethan goes ahead and charges and starts battering this one. I think he was thinking of sending some more stuff through, but I think he wanted to break this down so that he could get the points for it. I wasn't quite sure what he was planning because he was kind of doing one of 2 different elements in the game, which is, send a unit through, but also destroy the realm gates. He's already popped 1, and if he pops too many of them, he won't be able to get anybody across. But of course, the guy, his opponent won't be able to come his way. But he's really starting to, destroy these realm gates very quickly. So this was pretty smart on his part. So over here on this realm gate, I think that Orlando had Martin had tried to destroy some of these realm gates, but he wasn't able to put them away. And it really was depressing because he had literally done like 18 or 19 wounds to each of these things. And Ethan came in and not only walked in, and I think this actually was one of the ones that Ethan had popped, because Martin got one of the realm gates, but then Ethan came in and was able to destroy one of the realm gates after he had arrived. So this is one of the situations where, one of the Morn Fang had come in. I think this might be the end of turn 2. And, he got a giant in there. The giant survived. He has 3 of the Morn Fang. And between all this, he's just starting to rip through these some of these guys have two-handed hammers or star maces. These are not weak storm casts, and they're doing some serious damage, but still. All right, so this is on the other side of the board. This is some order and guys against Khorne on the other. I don't know the details of the game. I think it came down to almost a draw, with some nicely painted stuff and just some interesting tactics too. I think they may have spread themselves out a little too much, because they damaged like every war gate, realm gate that was on the table, but didn't destroy any of them. By the way, these realm gates do not have any bonus, any extra special effects and powers as per the regular game. We just tried to simplify that a little bit more. They had enough special effects in terms of the randomness of where you show up if you move through them. Some more pictures here. Okay, so getting back to my son's game, he starts swarming this Hydra, which didn't want to go away. I mean, the Hydras, they can regen, but once you start knocking them down, but they get some really good abilities in Age of Sigmar. They're much more effective than they were in 8th edition. In any case, he dropped a couple of these bulls, but Ethan's lead belchers had come in to help. And what was the funniest thing is that Martin goes at it and he mashes this up. He kind of converted this, and there's a kind of an Empire priest on the back of this. I don't know the details. I think it might be that he's using a war scroll from the Dark Elves, but he's using it with the theme of his army. So it's a standalone model, but he's kind of using a special effect. And what's awesome about this is that this guy on the back has this ranged attack, and the special effect that Martin picks is that the guy just basically chucks a book. He just chucks a book at you, and I don't know what the regular effect is. I don't remember, but it was pretty impressive, and it just was hysterical. We were just laughing at this. This guy just basically had like this endless pocket of books, and he was throwing it across and doing ranged attacks. So just a very smart and very interesting way of doing it by Martin. Very creative, but he's not going to be able to last that long. However creative and interesting and funny this model was. 5 bulls become 3, but with 4 lead belchers, this is that's a lot of guys to go sit on that one Hydra. The Hydra didn't last long. You can see here, the giant lost quite a bit of wounds, and we've already lost one Morn Fang here. But they're these two guys are tag teaming. What really these multi-wound and very very dangerous Stormcast, but still. It's they're losing more guys than otherwise, and that was really the kind of the synopsis of the game. I think that the crux of it was Ethan had been able to destroy 2 of the realm gates and get units through in more turns than Martin was, and he was able to take more points. And I gave Martin some bonus points too, because he was playing a little kid who needed a little bit of help and maybe a little coaching in terms of the rules, not in terms of deciding what to do, but just in terms of, how to do things and what the order of process was. Ethan's played a bunch of games, but he's still, I would say that with another kid his age, they'd probably be able to figure it out. But when playing with an adult who wants to do it a little bit faster, I think it's probably a good idea to kind of help him out. And I wanted to give Martin a few extra points for being really a good sport and kind of helping out with a young kid at the game, because there were a couple of kids that were playing the game at each of these tables. Okay, so I didn't take any pictures of any of the other games. When it came down to it, the final game was more of a tandem game, and we had one guy who literally built his starter box for the starter box for the Seraphon, the Lizardman, which is a great value. Comes with a Carnosaur, a whole unit of Saurus, and a unit of Saurus on cold ones. And wow, he put this thing together, I think, in less than an hour, and he didn't do a bad job. I mean, I don't know, I would have cleaned it up a little bit and gotten the moldings and stuff taken care of before I put this thing together. And he must have done it with crazy glue, because wow, he couldn't have done that with regular wood, the plastic glue. In any case, Martin didn't have enough points for the full size game, which culminated with, like, I think 150 wounds in total. And Ethan had exactly 150 wounds on his list. So these guys combined forces, and I think together they came up to like 148. And some really, a lot of units, and certainly a good diversity on that side. But Ethan's got the Beast Claw Avalanche, and my God, that Beast Claw Avalanche is crazy. Even though these guys really minimized its effectiveness in a good way, they were very smart in how they handled this. So this is a little bit of a blurry picture showing a very long line of not only Stormcast, which did not have as much of an impact in this game as they might have. They're just too slow. You need in different scenarios it might help, but these guys just weren't able to get into the action. A whole ton of Grail Knights with the Fey Enchantress. And again, here's the array of that starter box by this guy. I really applaud him. I forgot his name. I apologize if he sees this. And here's Ethan's, spread out stuff. He's trying to keep his Beast Claw kind of close together, and Knight and Giants on the flanks. So he moves up his forces. He was trying to get, I think, all of his Beast Claw to charge. And, the Beast Claw Avalanche combination allows for an extra die on your charge, which means you could charge from an 18 inches. It's not roll 3 dice, take the best 2. No. This is 18-inch charge range, which is astonishing. And I think that the other guys got the first turn, so they were able to move up got him in his range. But with dice rolls, there was only, there's some failed dice rolls. And this game, I forgot to mention, this game has like these geysers, 6 geysers put in each of the table quarters, and they randomly move, and one of them randomly blows up and does mortal wounds in a random radius, and they could do some serious damage to armies and units, and even take out, whittle down some heroes and some of the the diminishing profile monster types. But the key is you've got to chase them and get to them, and if you can be within an inch of them I think it's at the end of a turn, you get victory points. So while you can get victory points by killing your opponent in this game, the bulk of your victory points are achieved through chasing these geysers, which could potentially blow up in your face and wound several units around. So the idea here is to devote at least one solid unit, be a character, monster, war machine, whatever, but something that you can, you could hopefully do without, to kind of shadow one of these things and keep chasing them. And they can scatter pretty far. They scatter 2d6 in a random direction, which means some units can't keep up. You got to make sure that they're fast enough too. So, Ethan, corralled a couple of them, but he got one charge off on the first turn because, again, these guys walked in and he wanted to go after this dinosaur, man. I wasn't sure what he wanted to go after, but he wanted monster on monster fighting, and that he got it. So he got this charge on and started whittling wounds down. I think at the end of the turn, he had dropped this Carnosaur with a Scarvet, I guess, on the back, down to 5 wounds, which was pretty impressive. I mean, he could have done more wounds if there was another unit there, I think. He would have gotten the extra Beast Claw, roll for impact hits. But, there was only these 2 monsters in the fight, and to its credit, that Carnosaur, even wounded, was able to dish a ton of wounds back. I think he dished 3 more wounds, and that's a Stonehorn that takes half damage. I mean, if it's a 3, you still take 2, but in a 5, you still take 3, so it's rounded up. But it still takes half damage. So overall, that 12 wounds on that Stonehorn, it's probably more like 18 wounds. But he dropped 3 total wounds off that thing, and then in the following turn, he just swarmed it. every lizardman he had, he just swarmed around it. So I don't know how long that Stonehorn is going to last. But those are amazing. Then the Grail Knights got in on the Thunder Tusk, which is smart because that Thunder Tusk unwounded can blow heroes to shreds. Can take monsters and drop them to half. It's so powerful, that breath, that ice breath it has. So they I think that there was the Hydra once again, big target, gets in on some of the Mornfang. He was able to Martin and the other gentleman were able to bring in units to charge the Beast Claw, which is they were quick enough and they were successful enough with enough charges because if you can charge the Beast Claw, even though that's dangerous in and of itself, as long as you take the charge away from the Beast Claw, you've reduced the vast majority of the power of that Beast Claw Avalanche, that battalion, because a lot of the bonuses they get are mortal wounds that you get when you charge. And some of the inherent abilities of the Ogre units, the big ones, like the Stonehorn, like the Mornfang, are mortal wounds that it incurs on its opponents when it successfully makes a charge. With the Mornfang, it's on a 4+, but it's a big deal on the Stonehorn. Even so, that adds up. And it's even worse with the Beast Claw Avalanche. But these guys were able to charge most of the Beast Claw units and take that out of the equation, which I think was very smart, and and certainly they knew what they were dealing with. They knew that they knew the some of the weaknesses of this battalion, which a lot of people, they face these types of incredible abilities in these battalion scrolls. But I see a lot of people whine about it online and say they're overpowered and they don't want to include them. There are ways to defeat them and neuter them, and this is one prime example. Ethan's opponents were able to vastly diminish the power of this effect. Now, these are ogres, and the ogres are pretty damn good in Age of Sigmar. This Stonehorn, Ethan went early in the round, which is smart, and took out the Carnosaur, finished him off, which was great. But then the rest of these, there's only so many wounds, even when you're only taking half. These guys just moved through this Stonehorn. It was pretty impressive, especially considering how many wounds the Stonehorn potentially has. And then the Hydra didn't last again. Poor Hydra, man. He's got priest throwing books over between its heads and enemies. Really, Hydra just didn't get a lot of respect. But he took out one of the Mornfang here, which is nothing to sneeze at, because there's 6 wounds each. The Giant was dropped down to 1 wound, going up against some Grail Knights on the opposite side of the board, but they weren't able to finish him off. And then the rest of Ethan's forces start moving up. He starts charging. He's already owned and took the first turn with extra victory points because he remembered to go after the geysers. Urgold is being shot out of these geysers. They're valuable. They were the main focus of this mission, this scenario, with the risk being that one of them at any turn could blow up and the others would move in a direction where if you're chasing them, they may put you well out of the game, or even put you in a position where you're in danger and ruin some of your plans, which I think this is my favorite scenario of the 3 that that we have for these events. And I played this a couple times with my son. So my son really had the eye on the prize. Stick with the geysers, at least his 3, and start punishing your opponent. Check him if he's trying to come in on your side or try to break through and go to his side. And you can see that his bulls and his Mornfang are starting to move in on the left side here to go after one of the geysers. And the opponents, his opponents, Martin and another dude, totally forgot, except for one of the geysers. They forgot about the mission at hand. They were just focused on the killing, which put the whole advantage on Ethan's side. So I was pretty amazed at that. I wasn't going to help either side in terms of the idea of what they were doing, but I was pretty impressed that Ethan kept his eye focused, and I was surprised. But look, you're new to a new scenario, you can forget, especially you default to the muscle memory, the regular standard actions, which is kill your opponent. But that's what I think Age of Sigmar's strengths are, and that's where it excels, where it's not just kill. It's defeat your opponent, but also try to win the objective, not just defeat your opponent. Something I've learned also that's very important when it comes to games like Bolt Action. So Ethan moved up his lead belchers. I think he wanted to wipe out some of these lizard. He just had a thing for the lizardmen in this game. He kept his attention on the lizardmen, and was looking to try and take out these demigryphs with the rest of the beast claw that survived. He moved. He left. He didn't want to move this guy. This guy, I thought he was going to go and try and move up and take on the Stormcast. He just sat this giant right next to this objective, which was smart. Then this was his butcher. His butcher sat at another objective, which kind of scattered earlier, way up, probably too far up. And, he had used the maw at one point. Let me tell you something. He had used the maw, and the way the maw works in this game is You cast. I'm sure it works very similar in 8th, but in this game, the way it works is you cast it. If you get it off, it's die 3 mortal wounds, and then you roll on a 4-up. It does it again, die 3 mortal wounds. If you can roll 4-up again to see if it's, if you roll under a 4, it's satiated. The maul goes away. If you roll 4, 5, or 6, it still goes. There's a potential this thing could go just chop through an entire unit and eat the whole thing, no matter how big it is. Obviously, the law of averages being that it probably won't eventually, but you roll enough dice, you'll see that sometimes there's hot streaks. And Ethan was on a hot streak. I think he got like 4 times, and he just destroyed this mounted Saurus unit on cold ones with that spell. And he put a standard bearer on the other one, and these guys just opened up with all their cannons and just walked right through to kill the last of this mounted Saurus. And he wanted to get through into the middle and kind of try to munch up the rest of these guys. And by this time the time had run out. I think they got into turn 3, and it was a fun game. It was an interesting game. There was a lot of I think that it just goes to show that if you have an objective that has some randomness to it, that makes you try to have to adapt to the scenario. You don't have to worry necessarily about balance, even though we tried to balance these armies out as much as possible for the event itself. I'm against the whole idea of points and whatnot. But for an event like this, you want to try and have a measure of controlling the crazy, and I think that was accomplished. But even then, it really separates whether if you're able to stick to the game plan and target the scenario objectives versus just go out and kill. The person who does the former is going to succeed and win the scenario. So Ethan did well. He had a huge array of victory points from just focusing on the objective. And his reward for placing so high and doing so well in this event was the famous Millennium Falcon cookies they have at the Brooklyn Strategist, which are awesome. They're amazing, very tasty. And so that was his prize for the end of the night after we had gotten back. And I think it was well rewarded, well-deserved reward. I'm very impressed with how he played and his composure. He lost a little focus every once in a while. The kid's 9 years old, but he did well, and he had a good time. We had a nice dinner afterwards with the family. And I love that place. I want to thank Colt at the Brooklyn Strategist and some of the other guys that run the show there, Rich and several. There's a bunch of people there that they're just really welcoming. They have a great atmosphere. The place was packed with people. I mean, every table packed. People just hanging out. People painting. People playing all kinds of games, not just these war games. And I was, I just by the time my family had met up with me. And met us there, and before we went out to dinner, they were astonished. They actually equated the place looking as cool as the comic book store in Big Bang Theory. So after the more recent edition, which I think was cool. Anyway, I am rambling. It is a Saturday night, and I want to thank anybody who's watching this. I hope you enjoyed, and there'll be more actual battle reports coming up. But there's more events coming up. I've got next week a big mega battle at the Bearded Dragon, which is going to be all comers fighting against the armies of Nagash. So it's going to be chaos and ogres and elves and Bretonnians and Stormcast all trying to go after and try to kill Nagash and blast through all his undead legions and destroy the necropolis that he's trying to build. So stay tuned for more information about that. If you're in the area of Bernardsville, New Jersey, and you want to join in this coming Saturday, there will be prize support. There was prize support for this event today as well. And there'll be more events, both with the Gamer Grunts and with other events that I'm running on my own that I'll be talking about and sharing with people. So thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody.